video, we're going to be going over an upcoming colder pattern on either side of the country, and in between in the central United States, we'll have a bit of warmer temperatures. We could potentially be dealing with our first frost of the year in areas like northern New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, northern Maine. Those type of areas could be dealing with temperatures getting below 38 or 37 degrees, so they might get a little bit of a frost, or even some areas getting below freezing. And we'll also have a little bit of snow into the northwest, and that'll actually be a fairly widespread event, so we will briefly cover that as well. And then, of course, again, we're going to be talking about the colder and the drier temperatures, and then the colder and the warmer temperatures, and then we'll also talk about the drier conditions into the southeast. So here's a look at the current National Weather Service page. As you can see, we have a few red flag warnings in effect for some parts of the northern plains, the northwest, and into parts of the Rockies as well. We also have some freeze watches in effect for a little bit of Idaho, Oregon, and California, with a couple of frost advisories in northwestern California. We also have some wind advisories in Missouri, Kentucky, Indiana, and Illinois. And again, it's always that one precinct area where they always put up a wind advisory. I'm not sure why, if they have a lower criteria than everywhere else, but it seems like, again, I've mentioned this a few times before, but it seems like this area always has a wind advisory up, even if the surrounding area does not. Moving on to the extremes from yesterday, we had a high temperature of 107 degrees in Death Valley, California, low temperature of 17 in Peter Sinks, Utah. Highest rainfall report was in Plymouth Municipal Airport in Massachusetts, where they got 3.84 inches of rain. No snowfall reports yesterday. So here's a look at the low temperatures, and we're going to be taking you through the next 9 or 10 days. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of what each color on the screen means, look at the right hand side of your screen, and it'll show you what each color represents. So the red colors, those indicate temperatures that are below 30. If you're in that white color almost, which you can actually see a little bit of that into Oregon and California, that's where you're between 30 and 40 degrees. If you're in this type of color right here, kind of a bluer color, but still fairly close to that light blue color as well, that's where you're between 40 and about 50. And then once you get between 50 and 60, it's more of this dark blue color, which you see in a few of these spots right here. And then once you're into the yellow colors and the orange colors, that's where you're above 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's how you would read this map right here. Here to be for Tuesday in the morning hours and what we're expecting for that time frame. You can see that we're going to start off with some colder temperatures into the northwest. You can also see that we do have some extent of chillier air right along the Canadian border, so fairly far to the north, but you are seeing some of that colder air moving in. So it's not really making it that far to the south, but it is a start to what will eventually grow into a bit of a colder pattern. So this would be by Wednesday, and you can see that for many of these areas in the interior northwest, you're dealing with temperatures that are getting down near 30 degrees in a lot of those spots, even higher spots in higher elevation regions getting up into the 20s, which you can see into some parts of Canada and the northwestern United States. And you can also see that we have a little bit of colder temperatures into the northeast. So we were looking at yesterday or this would actually be for Tuesday, where the colder temperatures really only got that far to the south, and now they're all the way down further to the south into the mid-Atlantic and the lower Ohio Valley. So definitely getting fairly far to the south with the below 60 degree low temperatures, but still really nothing that crazy, and definitely nothing that I would consider to really be that cold. If we move this on to Thursday, you can see not a lot of changes. We have that little plume of really warm air right in between these two colder air masses. So what's basically happening is that we have one trough right here, and then we have another trough right here, and that makes way for the ridging, which takes place into the central United States, where you have those temperatures into the 60s, 70s, and even in the afternoon into the 80s. Here to be by Friday, which is October 1st, And you can see that we do have some moderating temperatures into the western United States. So you can see it's not as cold. We're still dealing with temperatures into the 40s for many of those areas, but again, not really as cold as what we were dealing with before, and it will begin to start to get a little bit colder into the northeast. So you guys will start to get in on some colder temperatures, and we can even see in that in some of those higher elevation spots along the Appalachians, we do have a few lower 40s and upper 30s starting to pop up, and that's going to start to expand with those colder temperatures. So here to be by October 2nd. You can see that still nothing that's really, I would say, too chilly. You are dealing with some temperatures getting into the low 40s, and that would include some parts of Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. All those areas getting into the 40s, but in terms of 30s, in terms of things, or in terms of temperatures that I would consider to be when you would probably need to take a little bit of precautions, especially with plants outside, we're not dealing with any of that up to this point. It'll just be a little bit chilly in the morning, and then by the afternoon you're back up into the 60s or 70s. That would be by Saturday, which is October 2nd. Here's a look at Sunday, and at the surface, you would look at this and you would say, wow, it's actually getting a little bit warmer, but you're actually starting to see another little band of colder temperatures that will move further to the south once again. So this would be by Sunday, October 3rd. Here would be by Monday, October 4th, and then by Tuesday, it does start to get noticeably colder for a localized spot of the northeastern United States. So for New England and upstate New York, you will have some temperatures getting into the 30s, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week, all going to be rather chilly for these spots. If you live in Quebec or in also eastern Ontario, you also want to be paying attention to this, because you will also be probably into the mid 40s, low 40s, or even on some of the outskirts of areas like Montreal and Quebec City. So not in the city itself, but getting into the areas that I would say probably a few dozen miles outside of the city. And that's when you could start getting into the 30s Fahrenheit for the low temperature. So it will start to cool down quite noticeably, and even if you live outside of those areas, you could be dealing with temperatures that could produce a little bit of frost, and that could cause some issues with the with plants. If you have them outside, they could of course die if you leave them out in the cold. So I would recommend bringing them inside, or just putting a little tarp over them, which will protect them for the most part from these temperatures. And then if we look at for Wednesday, October 6th, which is as far as the model goes out, you can see that it's into the 30s for this entire region right here. We're not really dealing with too many lower 30s, but really mid and upper 30s is what we're expecting as of right now, which is the coldest temperatures that we have seen so far this year, or not this year, because technically that would include January and February, but so far this fall and winter season. So definitely the coldest that we've seen so far, and we are going into a colder time frame as we get into October, November, December. So we should expect more of these colder temperatures to start to arrive. Here's a look at the upper air map, and this is actually going to be an interesting setup, because what we're going to see is actually some colder temperatures, even though we're going to be in a high pressure blocking system, which I'll show you in just a moment. So you can see that we have, to start off by Tuesday, a little trough into the northwest. This would be tomorrow. So again, Tuesday, September 28th, we have a little trough right into the northwest. We have a low pressure into the southwest. We have a high pressure into parts of the northern plains, and then we have another low pressure into into parts of the northeast. So we have this little jet stream, which is right along there. We do have another dip into the southwest, but for the most part, it's a standard pattern. You have that plume of warm air into the central United States, which is allowing the other opposite extreme. So you're going from one extreme of really warm temperatures to the other extreme on either side of rather chilly temperatures, and that's why that's happening. When you have one area of either really warm or really cold temperatures, that'll set off the areas to right next to it to become a little bit warmer or colder, depending on which one. So basically, if you have one big area of really cold temperatures in the central United States, it's likely that along the East Coast it'll be a little bit warmer, and also along the West Coast it'll be a little bit warmer, and vice versa. If it's warmer in the central U.S., and then on either side, you would probably have some colder temperatures. It's really just because you can't have really, unless you have a really flat pattern, you can't have, for the most part, in most scenarios, two areas of cold temperatures right next to each other. Usually you have a little bit of a buffer of warmer temperatures in between. It's just something that usually happens, and it usually happens. So you want to kind of look for those little high pressures right next to it. You can see some colder temperatures normally. This would be for Thursday, and you can see that we have that low pressure, which was originally all the way up into northern Quebec, dipping down into New England. So we have some of those colder temperatures moving in there. But notice that we do have this high pressure, which is starting to move further east and build over the top of the of Ontario and also Manitoba in Canada. So those areas getting in on some slightly warmer temperatures, but really not by that much. You're also dealing with some colder temperatures and also some precipitation into the southwest. So they are actually dealing with a little bit of a rainfall. So that is good news for them. This will be by Saturday. You can see that we have this little low pressure which is trapped right here. You can also see Hurricane Sam, which is down there. So I've seen a lot of people talking, especially in the news, about Hurricane Sam. I personally don't think this is going to be too big of a deal. It looks like it probably will curve out before it really impacts any land. So there's been some big attention brought to Hurricane Sam because a couple of days ago it was looking like it was going to potentially come closer to the United States. I held off from making a video on that just because you will see that kind of thrown around. Hurricane Sam is going to make landfall, and eventually it probably won't. So I don't like to make videos on hurricanes more than 5 days out, because especially if it's coming close to land, I don't want to kind of put anyone in fear and say, well, this is going to be a huge Category 3, Category 4 hurricane that'll make landfall, and then it doesn't end up happening. So I usually like to refrain. Some people like to capitalize on it for views or clicks or whatever, but I held off from it, and it is veering out. So this one, not going to be a big issue for you guys. It looks like that one is moving out to sea, further to the east. No impacts along the east coast, at least as of right now. We're not looking at any impacts right now. We also have, again, the high pressure continuing to build into the eastern United States, and something interesting will start to happen. So you have that high pressure building in. By this point, it's right here, and you can see that we have the high pressure, what seemingly would be a fairly warm pattern for the eastern United States, and it is a fairly warm pattern, but look at this little cutoff right here. You have this low pressure into Nova Scotia, and that's allowing a little bit of a dip in the jet stream, where you could have some colder than normal temperatures. So if we move this on, even by Wednesday, which is October 6th, you can see that we still have that high pressure right here, but on the eastern end, because the high pressure kind of curves down like this, you still do have a little bit of a cutout where you have colder temperatures right here. So if you live in the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, by the 7th or 8th or 9th, it will start to warm up. But if you live in New England, especially northern New England, it looks like it'll probably stay a bit on the chillier side, and it's for that reason. It's because we have that high pressure bringing in some of the colder air. You have a flow that's coming down like this due to that high pressure, which is sitting up in Canada. So it's an interesting pattern. You don't see it too much, but it is certainly something that you want to look at because it does happen every once in a while. Here's the snowfall forecast map, because we do have a little bit of snow, especially in the Colorado mountains, also up into Wyoming and Utah especially. We do have some areas in these areas for Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, where we're dealing with 18 or more inches of snow, and even in some of the mountains in southwestern southwestern Colorado. Those mountains do get very high, by the way. They're up near 10, 11, 12,000 feet up. And a lot of people don't talk about those mountains, but they actually get probably, well, I don't know the exact numbers, but they do get at least comparable numbers to the snowfall in northern Colorado in the mountains. So both of those areas get a ton of snow per year. And I know I have a viewer from southwestern Colorado who works down there, and they do definitely get quite a bit of snow. So they're getting in the mountains up near 25 or more inches of snow in those spots. If you live up in British Columbia or Alberta, definitely skiing season is underway. We do have some of the snowpack starting to build in, and we have expected added snowfall of about 4 to 6 feet in some of the highest peaks, but for most spots it's going to be over a foot at least. Here to be the winter storm severity indexed over the next 3 days. So this goes until the 30th, which I believe would be Wednesday, but I could be mistaken. And you can see that we do have some risk. If you're passing by on some of these mountain passes, just watch out. I would preferably you would want to take a different route, but I know sometimes in these areas there is no other option. You have to go through some mountain passes in order to get to some areas. So just try your best to avoid some of the snowy roads. Keep the radio on just to hear if there's any accidents on some of the roads, and also just try and listen to any local weather station that you have, or any local news station, because they'll probably be updating you on what the road conditions are. If you hear about a crash on a road, it would just be best probably to find a different option, because normally those will take a couple hours at least, especially in the snow, to get cleared up. Here's a look at the total rainfall as well, and you can see that we do have some rain expected over the central United States, and it's actually going to be about 1 to 3 inches. This is over the next 10 days. Northwest also getting quite a bit of precipitation in the form of rain and snowfall. And then one thing that is notable is that the southeast, you guys, over the next 10 days, including Florida, only dealing with maybe 1/4 of an inch at most. So for those of you down there, it will be a very, very pleasant few days to start off October. So over the next 10 days, very little rain in those areas, and I think a lot of people would take that this time of year. It's starting to cool down, so it's not in the like in the summer where you have the kind of those dry summer days, but it's also very, very warm. It will actually be fairly nice into the 60s, 70s, 80s. Not that warm in these spots, so it will definitely be very, very nice and pleasant in the southeast to enjoy the weather. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below, and I'll be responding within a couple hours of you posting that, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.